Thanks very much, Chair. Just to advise that the live stream is working, a reminder to only speak when invited to by the Chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communications via the Chair. Please ensure that your mics are muted when you're not speaking. If you're referring to a specific page or picture in a report, refer to the page number. If you're having technical difficulties, please use the chat function in Google Meet to alert the meeting, or dial in on the phone number and using the PIN provided when we sent out the invite. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the committee or making any other comments, and any persistent disruptive behaviour will result in removal from the meeting. Over to you, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you very much. I have no further announcements. Apologies for absence. Councillor Bramble, I think. Of no urgent business that I've been noticed for. Are there any declarations of interest from members that we need to add to what we know already? There is a confidential appendix which we may or may not need to refer to at that point. No deputations, unrestricted minutes of the meeting on the 7th of March. Can we agree that as a, I won't go through it, but if anyone's got any issues, please raise them. Can we agree that as a true record? Agreed. Okay, which brings us to item 7, I think. Mr. Page, which is the procurement for general building dedicated for ASMs and contract. Well, anyway, item 7. So if I could ask Kane Roach, is it, to introduce this? Please, Mr. Roach.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Kane Roach, Head of Building Maintenance. This paper outlines the procurement strategy and approach for procuring contractors to support our in-house DLO within building maintenance. It's been put together in conjunction with our strategy for insourcing and growing the DLO. There are opportunities outside of this contract that we've identified for doing that. And again, it links in with the work that is already ongoing around the repairs improvement and the additional investment in the service to deal with the repairs backlog from COVID situation. There's two lots essentially. Both lot 1 and lot 2, we are intending on procuring 2 contractors to give us capacity and capability across the borough. Lot 1 is the area surveying manager's works. These are typically minor works, so sort of more complex cases specified by surveyors, and that is for the value of 6 million per annum. And similarly, we've got 2 contractors in lot 2 for DLO support. So this is for capacity overflow for the DLO. It's a much smaller sum of 665k per annum, and it's for a shorter duration because we envisage more of that work being delivered in-house over the longer term. We're committed at the moment to 26 additional posts internally, so we are making progress with insourcing and developing and growing our in-house capability and team. Another note to add to this procurement is that we need to extend the existing arrangements with our term contractor Purdy's for a further year to go up to the end of March 23, and we'll be running this procurement activity within that timescale to onboard contractors for the start of the next financial year, allowing for all appropriate consultation and due process to be followed and completed. As with all contracts, we will be looking at getting best value from this work. It's critical to business operations to have good supply chain contractors. We will be scoring on criteria such as sustainability and socio-economic factors as well, encouraging local employment. particularly we feel that the splitting it into 2 lots in this way and having the DLO support contractor will appeal to SME providers locally as well, and increase their chances of being successful on that particular lot. So having that strategy in place gives us a bit more flexibility and more control and capacity on the supply chain, which is always going to be necessary to deal with the overflow of work beyond the capacity and capability of the in-house team. I'm happy to take any questions that anyone may have regarding that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Woodley?
Thank you. Makes sense to me to split the contracts in that way. Very clearly explained. Thank you. Also encouraging to hear that there's already growth in the DLO in terms of the number of appointments that you said that have been made. I'm wondering what the target would be and over what timescale if we're going to continue in that direction. I won't say I'm impatient, but you know, it is the way we'd like to go.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, thank you for the question, Councillor. The plan over the longer term will be to try to move towards, like, within the next 5 years, to take more of the work that's currently subcontracted in-house. So it'll be a gradual step change towards that. So quite a significant change already. The 26 additional posts. Yeah, that's significant growth straight away, and we'll be looking to build on that over the coming years. There will always be the need for external contractors to support the delivery of the services. So we don't envisage, you know, being 100% in-house, but currently there's about a 50-50 split between the work that build and maintenance cover, how much of that is done in-house and how much is contracted. So we want to be, you know, targeting that balance and bring in a much bigger percentage and proportion of the work in-house over time. But it's going to be gradual over the next 5 years, and it's got to be done responsibly as well. So we need to identify works that we're already doing in-house, as you know, and growing, doing more of that, and then look at what other work in addition to that we can bring in, and always, you know, being able to demonstrate value for money, you know, being competitive on price and quality as well is critically important.
Are there any other questions or comments on this report? Do I have anything? No, I don't think so. I did. Okay, thank you very much. If we can turn to the recommendations. Obviously, sorry, I'll just say, obviously, very important contract for us, and all those issues that you raised in your introduction, and Councillor Woodley is just raising the question, are important to us, and clearly we'll want through the contract management system, or however we do it, to you know, be informed of how the progress is going with insourcing over the next few years on that. So that. So I'm just making notes of that. Okay, if we can turn to the recommendations, part 3. I won't read through them all, but there's extension of the current contract plus the formalities in relation to the 2 new ones. Are we happy to agree those? Agreed. Thank you very much then. So if we can move then to item 8, lift replacement, and I think Robert Matheson, we may need the exempt part at some point, but I'm assuming for the moment we are not.
That's correct. Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
So the lift replacement and maintenance contract, we're putting forward the paper that covers the business case to procure a new contract. As some people may be aware, the previous incumbent left the council at relatively short notice, and the council needed to bring in the current incumbent at quite short notice. Although we've made significant progress with the lift servicing, it isn't something that will suit the council in the longer term. So we do need to go down a new procurement route. we need to have a suitable lift contract in place, both to carry out day-to-day lift servicing and testing to meet our statutory and regulatory requirements. But there is also a significant piece of work that we need to do in terms of upgrading our lift stock. The council has over 600 lifts across its portfolio, and there is a need to gradually refurbish and upgrade these, and we are starting to formulate a plan, but the intention is to have a contract that can assist in delivering that. So the proposal is to consider a contract that can pick up both the day-to-day maintenance of our lift stock, as well as the longer-term replacement, and that most that within the lift industry, that is the normal route that most lift contractors are able to do both. And in fact, there are benefits we consider for the lift contractor to be both maintaining our stock as well as carrying out necessary refurbishment on it. We have done some work with our lift consultants and looked at the market, and also considered the need to have a resilience for the council. And our proposal is that we would have two geographical areas, namely north and south, that not only would provide the resilience, but would open the market to a greater number of contractors, and in particular facilitate the opportunity for SME contractors to bid for the work. So the intention, whilst that work is being done to re-procure the lift contract, we would be looking to, we would obviously extend the existing arrangement we have with Apex Lift to cover that duration. So at this stage, we've given some consideration to the sort of appropriate length of the contract, and trying to balance the benefits of building a longer term relationship with the successful bidders, and the opportunity to ensure value for money. And our view is that this would be best served by having an initial term of 5 years and being able to extend that for a period of up to a further 5 years. So the paper sets out taking the procurement forward, and links back to our asset management strategy in terms of the work with to upgrade our stock and maintain our lift portfolio. So I think that's sort of the main things for Chair. Chair, if there's any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from members? Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you. Yeah, apologies if I've missed it, if it's in the paper, but are we explicitly saying we will definitely use two contractors to secure the benefits, as laid out in 5.2, being able to allocate work across? Because it seems one of the huge risks is that if you've just got one and they fail, then you're in trouble. So are we very expressly saying, however good one contractor might be, we won't give them both contracts? We will always make sure there's a second contractor.
Councillor, thank you for the question. That is indeed the case. We are, and our recommendation is that to procure two contracts, we are going to ensure that whilst we cannot restrict contractors from bidding for both geographical areas. tender documentation will be drafted in such a way that they can only win one of those contracts for the very reason that you outlined, to make sure that the council has that robustness and resilience going forward.
Councillor Kennedy, was that all right? Yeah. Can I just why the split was chosen on the basis it is? It's a geographical split, this one, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, whereas so the other contract we looked at, they have been a basis of work level, if you know what I mean, and just.
Yes, so I think. And
I just wonder what the rationale was that, because just to play devil's advocate, it could be seen as being a little less flexible than maybe the approach you've taken on the service has taken on the general works.
Yeah, the reason why we've taken the approach to split the lift contract on a geographical area, because just in terms of the efficiency of being able to run for each of the lift contractors to be run an operation where they can have their vehicles within parts of the borough as opposed to other parts. On some contracts, we have made recommendations to split things by typography, so which we'll obviously discuss under the electrical safety works, because that better suits the market, and we believe and have had advice that will give us better value for money. So I think we feel specifically for the lifts to split in terms of servicing of geographically is best suited for the contractors, and they can pass on efficiencies to the council.
Thank you. It would have also been helpful, I think, to see a little bit more in the paper about the sustainable procurement wishes of aspirations of the committee. And I see it. Thanks for the supplementary paper. Got the right bit. Sorry, it's on a different set of papers.
Yes.
For me. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah. Thanks for supplementary, which is helpful. But yeah, it would be, I think, helpful to see a little bit firmer detail, for instance, in the number of apprentices you would expect under this contract, and some harder information about how we would achieve some of our objectives in. Well, we could see, I would, in green procurement and other areas. Is it any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I think obviously we at the beginning of the tender,
some firm KPIs, because I think we cover the areas where we may be interested in, but not really setting out what the KPIs might be.
The KPIs obviously being formulated as part of that procurement process. We are aware that we want to maximise the benefits, both in terms of local training and opportunities for apprenticeships, as well as looking at the opportunities to meet the council's sort of green agenda, both in terms of sort of efficiency, in terms of power, the power used from the list, but also in the supply process. So that is obviously being worked up as part of the documents, and when we bring back a paper in due course in terms of recommending award, that will set that out in a significantly greater detail.
So if we agree these proposals tonight, we can expect to see another report at the award stage with full details of this in.
That is indeed correct.
Is that what we've been promised there? Great. Okay. Thank you. Do any members have any other questions or comments? Can we then move to the recommendations? Section 3, as always. So I'm whizzing through here. As set out on page 15, which is basically to procure the 2 lot contract as set out, and the variation there. So agree all those recommendations. Agreed. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Then thank you. So the next one is item 9: electrical fire safety, large blocks and street properties, and this is going to be introduced by.
It's myself as well.
Carrying on, are you?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Batson. Okay.
Thank you. So the paper that we've submitted is a recommendation for a contract award in respect of electrical safety works. This is for based on just just to clarify, in terms of the sort of works that will be involved in this are really fire protection systems such as fire alarms, so communal light and emergency lighting and other fire safety works. So the proposal is to award the contracts under 2 lots, one for large blocks and another one for street properties. And the rationale for splitting those is by typology rather than geographically, is because it's likely to there's very more similar work if you look at the interventions required for the large blocks and the street properties in terms of fire safety works, and therefore we believe that we will get a greater interest from the market and more competitive submissions on the tender. We've also given careful consideration in terms of the appropriate length of the contract, and we believe that by having a 5-year contract with an option to extend to up to a further 5-year will enable us to sort of build longer term relationships with the successful bidders, as well as ensuring value for money. As part of the tender process, we've worked to maximize social value out of that and use the council's gone through the social value exchange. So we've had the various rounds of bidding sessions against the resource bid. On this particular contract, as the actual contract sum isn't defined, the social value commitment given by the tenderers is based on a sort of graduated scale. So as the value of the work increases, obviously their provision increases in line with that. I think that's so the recommendation is to award the 2 contracts as set out in the appendix. Lot 1 award for large blocks for 5 years with an option to extend up to a further 5 years, and a lot 2 for the street properties for 5 years with an option to extend for up to a further 5 years. And happy to take any questions.
Councillor Kennedy.
Sorry, Chair, I'm afraid it's an exempt appendix question, but it is about this contract. So I can't ask it until we're in.
Sorry?
So I can't ask it until we're in the exempt session, can I?
Oh, right, okay. Right. Yeah, so we need to go to exempt. Have we got exempt bit on this bit there? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions we can deal with in the open session? So I'd better defer decision on this then until we get into the exempt decision. So then, okay, so if we could just hold that for a minute and then move to item 10, the update on the selection of contractor for King's Crescent. He's Chris Chow, I think, going to do this, isn't he? Look. So it says on my notes. Yeah, Chris.
Chris is actually on leave, so I will hand over to Ron.
Sorry, that isn't Chris. Who's that? Sorry.
No, it will be the project manager and lead report author, which is Ron Greenwood.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. As James says, I'm the project lead for this project, King's Crescent phases 3 and 4. and members might note that the scheme comprises 219 homes, 28 for social rent, 75 for shared ownership, and 116 outright sale. Also involved is the external refurbishment of 174 homes in 4 existing blocks. There's going to be a new community centre, 4 retail spaces, B1 workspace, and significant public groundworks. Members will note that the CPI report of the 6th of December was approved, which enabled us to enter into contract with a bidder following a rigorous tender process. It's fair to say that since that approval, the market has been and continues to be considerably volatile and inflationary. And the purpose of the report is to outline the issues encountered since approval, and now seeks approval for a delegated authority to award the contract as soon as possible after a second go at the Section 20 process, which will be explained later. Just to outline the progress made since the approval in December, we started and completed the second stage of the Section 20 process, and that was duly completed in February. In January, we issued a standstill letter, and that standstill period expired on the 20th of January. It was a tender requirement. It should be noted that bidders should know that the award of contract was subject to the completion of this Section 20 process. In February, after completion of these pieces of work and these milestones, during a period of pre-contract discussion, the selected bidder advised that they were unable to commit to their best and final offer tender. We duly took legal advice, and we were advised to establish whether either of the bidders would stand by their best and final offer price, and we duly went through that process and established the fact that neither of them were prepared to stand by their price. We, in compliance with regulations, then have invited and reopened the tender, best and final tender process again, and we are requiring the tenderers to hold their price until the end of August. And this will allow a rerun of the second stage of the tender process, which is required because there may be a change in selected tenderer, or there may be a change of price. Since then, we've started the tender process, and the tender return date is later than set out in the papers. We've had to extend it due to the technical difficulties of one of the bidders with our tender portal. The evaluation will be in line with what we originally used in terms of weighting, so 70% cost, 30% quality. And so this reopening of the tender will just be based on the 70% cost element. So we will just apply the scores of that outcome to the existing quality scores. Following that, we'll issue a standstill letter, and we will then rerun as I said, the Section 20 process, which we're aiming to do by the middle of May, and complete that process by the end of June. And if the delegated approval is approved, that would enable us to enter into contract and expedite that process, basically. And I think that is all I can say in the open meeting. So I'm not sure whether you want to field questions at this stage, or in the exempt part, where I can provide more detail.
Mine's open question. One observation, one question. Observation more for ourselves as a committee chair, but the cost pressures within the industry once again are asking us to delegate authority. I'm just wondering whether do we need to meet more often, sooner? Do we just need to accept it as a fact of life in the current situation? Slightly sort of rhetorical question, but for us to consider in terms of, again, how we conduct our business. And the second, not a rhetorical question, is it all right to delegate authority to a group director who isn't yet in post, has been appointed, but isn't yet here? Are we okay with the timeframes of that? Are we okay with the legalities of that? Because in theory, although it's a post that's been created and appointed to, it doesn't yet exist or have a person there fulfilling those duties within the authority.
If that's a question for me, my understanding is that would mean that the chief executive would have to stand in terms of approval. So the chief executive and the director of finance will be making those delegated decisions.
Thank you. Yeah, but I'm going to ask both Rotimi and Andrew to comment on those, because there's a bit of philosophy in there as well as something that relates to this contract, wasn't there? So I don't know which one.
Well, I mean, if I may just come in, I think
There's two questions there, wasn't there?
Well, the delegation is really to the group director of Homes, Climate and Economy, and obviously, as Councillor Kennedy rightly pointed out, they're not here yet. I think within the process, I'm sure the chief exec ultimately can make that decision, given that the group director is not here. I would have thought that the chief exec will take those responsibility while we're waiting for them to come to the organization. So that would be the process for that. In terms of your second question around the challenges around the market with regards to construction projects, I mean, it is where we're at the moment. In fact, we put out some kind of sounding around this with other councils in London, just to understand how they're dealing with these challenges we're all facing. I think it's the same thing, really. The governance arrangement, we discussed it the last time, the governance process we have in place requires us to submit reports well ahead of time before decisions are made. And within that period of time, it might be difficult for the market to hold their prices. So that's why I think the best solution we've got at the moment is for us to delegate the authority to officers to make this decision more quickly than the committee cycle will allow us to. So that's why we're using this approach. Hopefully the market will slow down, or at least be more steadier than what we have now in terms of volatility. We'll be able to then, allow members to make the decision as they're supposed to in the future.
I note the use of the word hopefully there. Well, I hope you're right, but obviously the looks like there'll be pressures on us for some time to come, I think. So it's an important point. I think we should revisit it, for the next administration and see how the committee might want to react to if we are moving out of a time of relative stability in prices to very well. I know from other tenders that are coming over the place that there are challenges there. So that's a good point. Is there anything specific to this contract? Do we want to ask questions? The tender reports in the obviously in the exempt bit. Will we want to ask questions on that?
Sorry, Chair, can I just come in on the delegated authority question?
Yep, sorry.
So just to clarify for the committee and for Rotimi, the chief executive did the delegated powers report just before Ashman stepped down as group director for neighbourhoods and housing, basically giving delegated authority to the relevant strategic director. So it'll be the strategic director who makes the decision, not the chief exec. So his decision was that rather than appoint an interim, he would delegate down to the next level of management. So if it is the case that the decision needs to be made before the new group director starts, then it will be the relevant strategic or service director, who I think is Stephen Haynes in this instance.
I'll tell you what, I will go in, thank you very much for that, sorry. I will go into the exempt bit on this because we take the decision there in case, just in case something comes up, I think, rather than try and force it. Okay then, so if we just hold that for a minute then, and any other unrestricted business, I just wanted to say thank you to Andrew. I don't know if Andrew Spragg's leaving council, like going to the General Operational Council, was it? Yeah, it's a very important job there. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for the excellent support that you and the service that you run has given this committee and all the other ones I'm chairing actually, and over 2 years or so you've been here. So thank you very much. And can we offer you our very best wishes for the future? Yeah, and if you like my mate with all that as well. Thank you, Andrew, and best wishes. Okay, so if I could, I've got to read all this, haven't I? Exclude if I can move that the press and public be excluded from the proceedings of Cabinet Procurement and Sourcing Committee during the consideration of exempt items on the agenda on the grounds that it is likely, in view of the nature of the business to be transacted, that were members of the public to be present, there would be a disclosure of exempt businesses defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 72 as amended. So can I move that? Agreed. Right, so if you go back first to the electrical fire safety.
Please, yeah, it's fine.